Welcome to Blue Marble Geographics Ask the Experts. I'm Rachel Landry, and today I'm joined by my colleague Katrina Schweikert, a product manager here at the company. Today, Katrina will be talking to us about the new scripting ability in Global Mapper and Global Mapper Pro, including the recent addition of support for Python scripting. All right, Katrina, take it away.
So I have up here in Global Mapper the scripting interface. So I got to this from the file menu. You can either choose the run script option if you want to directly run a script, or open script editor if you want to open the editor and either start a new script or load a number of files as well. So I have a couple of examples up here. The first thing I want to start with is talking about Global Mapper script a little bit. So Global Mapper script is a great way to automate tools inside of Global Mapper. It's a very simple language that basically just uses commands that replicate what's in the dialog for tools inside of Global Mapper. So in this particular script, I've got a couple of commands here, just first defining this as a script, and then importing some data. I've entered a path to my data that I want to load, and then I have a generate contours command here, and I've entered all the parameters like I would enter on the dialog. So it's a quite simple language here for just basically automating what you would do within the dialog. So let's go ahead and run this script. So this is going to load my data and also generate contours. I have the option at the bottom of this dialog check to run this in the context of the main application. So I'm seeing my loaded data and results output onto the screen. You can also run this purely from the command line, have it run in the background, and just create outputs during your scripting and just use those outputs. So that's another way to do that. Python is a new option inside of Global Mapper, and this is embedded Python that works with version 3.9. So you can either use an existing installation of Python 3.9 if you already have it on your computer, or the installer has options for grabbing a version of Python 3.9 if you want to use this advanced functionality. So I have the same script here created with Python. You'll see that it's a little bit more complicated of a script. I have a couple extra lines to do this same operation. One of the big reasons to use Python would be that it has a lot more flexibility in terms of interacting with the application. So I'll show you that actually as an example. So I'm actually going to comment out some of these lines here that are loading the data. So rather than load from a file, we're going to actually just let this use the data that's already loaded on the screen. So since I already have terrain data loaded, within my contour command here at the bottom, that first parameter, none, is actually going to use the loaded data. So that is going to default to whatever terrain data is already loaded in my workspace. Within a Python script, you can also, for example, pause the script using the scripting commands and wait for the user to interact with your data on screen, or maybe load other data. So it's a lot more interactive rather than just automating, run from start to finish and produce a result at the end. Python can actually interact with the application sort of back and forth. It also can access things like the 3D viewer, work with some of the tools that are not included in the scripting language. So let's go ahead and run this. This is going to actually, rather than load from a file, it's going to use my already loaded terrain data, and it should generate very similar contours. I'm just going to save my changes there that I made to the script, and we will let that run. So you'll see this has produced a quite similar result here, but we've done this with Python instead of a Global Mapper script. So slightly different syntax. Python is a really powerful language, but it is a little bit more complicated. If all you want to do is automate tools within Global Mapper, then Global Mapper scripting has been and continues to be a great way to do that. Another reason that you might want to introduce Python into your workflow is actually to use third-party tools. So Python has a huge library of available tools that can do all sorts of data analysis. I have one example here that we're going to show. This is a popular Python library called Matplotlib that's used for creating graphs and charts, all sorts of things with tabular data. Let's go ahead and unload our existing data here. And we'll clear our result just so we see the result of this. So this is going to actually load some data into Global Mapper and then also use the same data inside of Matplotlib to create a histogram of the image. So let's go ahead and run this. This one is asking for a JPEG file. You can extend it to other formats as well, obviously, but not every program has quite as many formats as Global Mapper. So you could always convert your data within the Global Mapper Python library as well. So what this has done is within, let's minimize that window here, within my Global Mapper program, I have the data loaded, And then I have a new window here for Matplotlib that's actually showing an image histogram of this data. So I can see the distribution of the red, green, and blue color channels within this image. So Python is a really powerful way to extend Global Mapper to use tools in other libraries and kind of bring them in interactively to work with the analysis that you're doing within Global Mapper. In addition to just using for automation, kind of automating your access within Global Mapper, Python can actually allow you to interact with other applications as well. So yeah, it's a great new addition to the software and a really powerful way to do some advanced processing within Global Mapper.
Katrina, thank you so much for talking to us about the new scripting abilities in the software. I think the audience will really find it useful. To learn more about Global Mapper 23 and Global Mapper Pro, please visit bluemarblegeo.com today. And as always, thank you for joining us for Ask the Experts, and I hope you'll join us for our next episode.